Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range to implore you to stop referring to this rifle as a direct gas impingement rifle. The AR-15 is not a direct gas impingement rifle. Yes, you will find me using the term direct gas impingement. That's simply because I don't want to argue with people on the internet, because the vast majority of people on the internet simply don't understand the operating system of this rifle. It is not direct gas impingement. We've done videos on that in the past. So has Small Arms Solutions and others. And we have Eugene Stoner's actual patents to prove that even he said it was not a direct gas impingement rifle. So we're going to put that to bed in today's video. But beyond that, the system that Eugene Stoner developed was absolutely genius. I love it. And I will say direct gas impingement in this video just because I'm trying to minimize the trolling in the comments from people that simply don't know what they're talking about. But the Eugene Stoner system was genius. It's soft shooting. It's reliable. It's just been a great weapon system. It's been America's longest serving infantry rifle, the M16 AR-15, because of its reliability, lightweight, and all of its other incredible features. The question I have is, if it's so amazing, which I truly believe it is, why aren't more modern weapon systems adopting the same system of operation? Now, 60 years on, we still find NATO countries like the Kiwis, New Zealand, adopting M16s. This is one of their rifles. This is manufactured by LMT. It uses Eugene Stoner's system, the DI system, as many people would call it. So it is a popular system, and the M16 is an amazing weapon system. So let's dive in today's video to figure out why more weapons being designed today don't operate on this principle. All right, let's get started with today's video. Should be fun, and I do actually look forward to the comments. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. True gas impingement rifles do exist. As a matter of fact, there's quite a number of them. You'll probably know them from history. The MAS-49 is one example of a direct gas impingement rifle, and when we go back inside the shack, I'll explain the differences between this system of operation and the AR-15s. But you have the Youngman, you have the Hakim, you have the Rashid. There's a number of different rifles out there that were mass-produced, that were used by various militaries around the world that are true direct gas impingement. Impinge means to push directly on something, okay? And that's not what happens with the AR-15 M16. But that does happen with this MAS-49. Gas is tapped off, and it pushes directly on the bolt carrier face. It just pushes it back with a puff of gas. There's no gas rings or anything inside the bolt carrier like there is on the AR-15. It's directly impinging on that bolt face. There is a cup in here, but we'll talk about that when we get inside the shack. But let's shoot this rifle. This is a beautiful piece of military history. This rifle served the French quite well. It is... we have a video, I believe, on it. It's just one of my favorite rifles to shoot. It does chamber 7.5 French. All right, fire off a few rounds with this bad boy. Oh, I love shooting this thing. I just love old military rifles and being able to pull them out of the safe to shoot them and talk to you guys about the history of weapons. It's why I do what I do. Let's head inside and take a look at a true direct gas impingement rifle. All right, guys. So the controversial part of the video. The AR-15 M16 is not direct gas impingement. Not even close. Not even a little bit. It's a completely different system of operation. Now, there have been military weapons in general, that have been designed around a true direct gas impingement system, and that is the MAS-49, which I've shown you guys. The MAS and other rifles in this lineage, there are other French rifles that use the same system of operation, but there you have the Youngman and you have the Hakim and the Rashid and other rifles that use the same system. This rifle is true direct gas impingement because it taps gas off, brings gas back. This is your gas tube. There's just a simple hole in the end here that those propellant gases come back and push directly on the carrier's face. Now, there is a cup inside of here, right? There's a little tiny cup that you can see the firing pin dips into here. And that kind of wraps itself around the gas tube, I should say. And why does it do that? Now, I've had people argue with me on the internet saying, but it's just like the M16 because that's a piston system or something inside of there. No, it's not. It's just a pocket. And the reason for that is if this was exposed and the bolt stopped right there, when that gas came back, what do you think is going to happen? Those propellant gases are going to plume out and it's going to go right into the shooter's face. Of course, they had to recess it into a pocket to capture those gases, keep them from being blasted into the shooter's face, and also it keeps more of the gas in there longer to help cycle that bolt carrier. All right, there's no pistons, nothing else going on inside here. The gas is truly impinging directly on the face of the bolt carrier, hence impingement. Impingement means to push or otherwise influence. And that is a true DI system, which is nothing, absolutely nothing like the AR15. Here is an AR15 bolt carrier assembly. This is out of the New Zealand rifle that we showed you already in the video, but it's the exact same bolt carrier. I could drop this into a US Colt AR15 and it would work just fine. Here we have our carrier and our bolt. And right here on the bolt, those are called piston rings. And why would you put piston rings on a bolt if you didn't have an expansion chamber and it weren't a piston? Well, you wouldn't. That's because this is what I call an internal piston system. Now, that's not what Eugene Stoner called it. Eugene Stoner would have called this a piston and cylinder technology. The bolt is a stationary piston and the carrier, as he described it, is a movable cylinder. All right, so this is your movable cylinder and this is basically your piston. When the bolt and carrier are together, your propellant gases by gas tube come down to this carrier key, which are diverted down in this little expansion chamber right here. The piston rings are sealing this. So you have this little expansion chamber. Those hot gases come in, they expand, and they push the bolt away from the carrier. This is the movable part, right? So this is going to move away from the breech face, which is going to cycle the action. And this only moves a fraction of an inch. Now, if you look closely, you can see the piston rings pass these ports. And that's because once that movement starts, all that extra gas is vented through these holes to the atmosphere. They're no longer required for the operation of the firearm. So the excess gas pressure is relieved and that piston stops being pushed by those propellant gases. This is very much an internal piston, all right? Not DI. Gas is not directly impinging on this whatsoever. It's diverting those gases into an expansion chamber, just like a cylinder in the engine of your car, and causing it to move just like the cylinder in your car. That is not what is happening with a true DI firearm like the MAS-49 over here. Now, this is directly from Eugene Stoner's patent, okay? And I quote, "This invention is a true expanding gas system instead of the conventional impinging gas system." This, ladies and gentlemen, is a conventional impinging gas system. This is not, okay? So now you will hear me use the term DI in my videos, and people, the few people that are in the know that actually know what this system is, will say, "Hey, Mac, that's not DI." Yes, I know. But the other 60% or more, 70% of the people that aren't in the know will argue incessantly on the internet saying that I'm an idiot because I call this an internal piston weapon system. Okay, no, Eugene Stoner didn't use those exact words. That's something that we've come up with. I actually borrowed it from Small Arms Solutions, but it makes sense and it's easy to remember and easy to repeat. So if I call it a DI system, the only reason I'm doing that is to avoid arguing with you folks in the comment section, because I don't want to spend every video educating people on the operating system and writing a novel about why this is not a DI system. Okay, so there you have it. Hopefully in the future, when I get into these arguments on the internet, and I inevitably will, I'll just be able to point people back to this video and say, hey, go watch the first 10, 15 minutes of this video and see if you can learn something from it, because there is a big difference between DI and what Eugene Stoner invented. Okay, so the question then becomes, if this is such a great system, which I truly believe it is, you'll hear me say all the time, I love this system of operation, why aren't more modern weapons being designed today operating on this principle? Maybe you can help me in the comments section. tell me why you think this system has fallen out of favor to short stroke and long stroke gas piston systems. And even in the AR-15 itself, we see people doing that. Even countries in NATO that are adopting new AR-15s M16s, many of them are adopting things like the 416, which is a short stroke gas piston design. So that's very curious. But there are a few. I'm going to show you one of them that went into production and actually served a military U.S. ally. But there are others, and maybe you guys can help me find a few more, because I scoured the internet this morning trying to find examples of weapons that use the Stoner system of operation and came up short. So let's go to the next segment of this video, and this should be a little bit more fun. So in the 2020s, we don't see a whole lot of companies manufacturing new firearms based upon Stoner's system, which I'll just call an internal piston system for the sake of this video. Forgive me if I say DI. I've been conditioned by people to say that just because, again, trying to avoid conflict. This is the K1 rifle developed in South Korea for the South Korean military. This rifle is an internal piston rifle, but it's substantially different from the AR-15. You cannot say this is a variant of the AR-15. And that's one of the points I want to make in this video. So we do have plenty of new rifles coming out that are based on the AR-15, but use different methods of operation like short stroke or long stroke like the PWS gas systems. They've abandoned the internal piston system, or as you might call it, the DI system. Now there's one other weapon that comes to mind that is manufactured in the United States but not used by any military that I'm aware of, and that's the CMMG Descent. And I love that rifle. One of the reasons why I like the internal piston system is because it's very soft shooting. It is great for suppression. It's very easy to use with a suppressor, both high back pressure and low back pressure. They're very easy to tune, but again, it goes back to that really soft shooting nature of them. The only downside that people will give them, and it's true, is they blow a little bit more gunk back into the action. But if you're worried about that, go watch my 10,000 round BCM test and see just how detrimental that carbon is to the operation of a rifle. Not much. So it just makes it dirty. If you think the M16 is dirty, go shoot a G3 or HK33 sometime. It's even filthier. But anyway, this is the K1 rifle. Now, when you crack this bad boy open and look inside, clearly not based on the AR-15. Charging handle that reciprocates, clearly not AR-15. But when we take the bolt and carrier out, we have an internal piston system. You'll notice it has the cam pin, just like the AR bolt head, even has the cotter pin. Take my firing pin out here really quick. Lo and behold, gas piston rings, AR-15 bolt. Okay? Now it does have some differences. You'll notice the cut here for the ejector has a fixed ejector, doesn't have the plunger system, so it's not directly a one-to-one for the AR-15. But this weapon was designed by the South Koreans, who had licensed the M16 but wanted their own domestically designed and produced weapon for their military. And then later, the K2, the rifle variant, would abandon the internal piston system and go to a long stroke gas piston. And so I thought that was interesting. I wonder why they did that. It's not like this weapon was known to be unreliable. It wasn't. It's an extremely reliable weapon, just like the AR-15 M16 is an extremely reliable weapon. I have a Descent. My cameraman has a Descent. He's a huge fan of the Descent. It's basically an MCX with an internal piston system, or DI, as many people would call it. But outside of that, we've not seen a whole lot of companies innovating new firearms based around this system of operation. And I don't know why that is. Is it the carbon buildup that they're concerned about? Is it because of the negativity that so many people, out of what I think is misinformation around the DI system, the internal piston system, is it that they're just trying to avoid that controversy? Or is the short stroke or long stroke gas piston truly superior? Now, I would argue that most gas piston guns in the short stroke arena are more violent in recoil, harder to control on full auto. So in military applications, it's harder to train troops to use them because they're punchier. If you've ever shot a full auto G36, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when compared to a full auto M16, for example. But lately we've seen companies like SIG and HK and others that have developed short stroke gas pistons, like the A4 version of the HK MR556A4 or the new 516 G3 from SIG. Both of those rifles are very soft shooting. Now, did they accomplish that by reducing the gas flow and not overgassing them? Perhaps. The H&K certainly is very carefully tuned gas-wise. Earlier versions of the HK rifle were overgassed and were quite punchy. The new ones are much softer shooting. But the G3, the SIG 516, we've put it even on its adverse setting, and it's still a very pleasant rifle to shoot, even though it's being overgassed. So I don't understand why that is. Now, I was looking at parts counts and things like that as well. I was trying to get AI to help me go through different weapon systems I was giving it to get parts counts. And in most cases, not all, internal piston systems generally, believe it or not, have fewer parts. The piston rifles generally have more parts. And with more parts, generally speaking, you have more points of failure. So it's not a parts count issue. Take a look at the Glock. One of the selling points of the Glock is it has fewer parts in it than most of its competitors out there. People like that. Fewer parts, fewer possibilities for things to break. So I'm not quite sure. And I really look forward to reading some of the comments down below because I'm sure you guys might have some insight. I don't claim to be all knowledgeable about any of this stuff. I'm a little bit of a historian, definitely a small arms buff, and I try to understand these things because I enjoy not only the history of these firearms, but where firearms might be going in the future. I am one of the people that think that the new high-pressure cartridges that were developed for U.S. military use and now being adopted by companies like Federal, I see that as being a step forward into the future. And I just can't wrap my head around the popularity of the AR15 M16 and its internal piston operation, yet it's not being used in modern designed firearms. Crazy to think about. Let me know what you think. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video and the conversation we had about the AR-15 and its method of operation. I apologize if it came off as confrontational. That was not the intent of this video. I just wanted to share my opinion and try to clear the air a little bit because there's an awful lot of people out there that still don't truly understand the operation of the M16, which has served our nation well and admirably for 60 years. If you enjoyed today's video, please like, share, and subscribe. And also swing by, check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 17 years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon.